Great Recall Taiwan. Pro-China politicians survive unprecedented vote. Imagine a nation where the balance of power hangs precariously in the balance, and the fate of its democracy is decided by a single vote. This is the reality in Taiwan, where a recent historical vote known as the Great Recall had the potential to either oust politicians accused of being too close to China or maintain the status quo. The results are in, and the politicians have retained their seats. But what does this mean for Taiwan's future? The Great Recall was a civic movement that culminated in a massive vote across 24 districts, all held by the opposition Kuomintang party. Thousands of Taiwanese citizens participated, deciding whether to remove their legislators based on a simple yes or no question. Despite months of protests and fierce debate, early results showed that a majority of voters in every district voted against recalling the lawmakers. This outcome has significant implications for Taiwan's political landscape. The opposition maintains its slim majority in the legislature for now, though another round of recall voting is scheduled for August. Analysts warn that if the Great Recall fails to achieve its goals, it could intensify political polarization in Taiwan, emboldening politicians to push their agendas without considering opposition from a substantial portion of the population. The Great Recall and its origins. The Great Recall movement began following elections in January 2024, where Taiwanese voters chose DPP's William Lai as president, but gave the opposition a dominant presence in the parliament. In the months that followed, the Kuomintang party, known for its relatively friendly stance towards China, worked with smaller parties and independents to block key DPP bills and pass controversial legislation. This move infuriated many Taiwanese, who saw it as an attempt to stifle the DPP government while bolstering the opposition's power. Many in Taiwan believe that the Kuomintang's actions are influenced by China, a suspicion that grew when Kuomintang lawmakers visited China and were warmly received by top officials. The Kuomintang have denied these allegations, but the perception persists, fueling the Bluebird Movement protests that began in May 2024. Civic groups launched petitions to oust Kuomintang lawmakers, while their supporters retaliated with similar petitions against DPP lawmakers. The Great Recall's impact. The Great Recall has deeply divided Taiwanese society, with large rallies on both sides claiming to fight for Taiwan's democracy. Civic groups have been actively campaigning on social media and in the streets, while the Kuomintang and its allies have held rallies urging voters to reject the recall. The DPP initially distanced itself from the movement, but eventually offered support, with President Lai emphasizing the need to align with the people's power. Beijing has also entered the fray, accusing Lai of engaging in dictatorship under the guise of democracy and attempting to suppress the opposition. As the political landscape continues to unfold, one thing is clear. The Great Recall has set the stage for a broader discussion about Taiwan's future and its relationship with China. What's next? As another round of recall voting approaches in August, the stakes are higher than ever. Will Taiwan manage to balance its internal political divisions while navigating the complex geopolitical waters with China? The coming months will be crucial in determining the trajectory of Taiwan's democracy and its place in the region. But here's where it gets contentious. Do you think the Great Recall movement is a genuine struggle for democracy? Or is it a political tool to manipulate power? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Taiwan's unprecedented recall election fails. Pro-China politicians remain. In a high-stakes political showdown that captivated Taiwan, a historic bid to remove 24 opposition lawmakers accused of being overly aligned with China has fallen apart, with voters delivering a clear rejection across the board. This unprecedented attempt to reshape the parliament's balance of power aimed to give President Lai Ching-te's Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, the upper hand in pushing controversial reforms. But opponents celebrated what they called a decisive rebuke to shaky political tactics. Here's the twist that made this vote so significant. Saturday's recall elections targeted an entire block of legislators from the Kuomintang KMT party, which holds the legislative majority despite losing the presidency to Lai last year. The proposal required approval from at least 25% of each electorate's registered voters, a threshold not one of the 24 districts met, as verified by the Central Election Commission by nightfall. But this isn't just a local power struggle. It's a critical moment in the cross-strait tensions between Taiwan and China. The DPP accuses the KMT of weakening national defenses through legislative blockades, from derailing defense budgets to stalling court appointments. The KMT counters that their approach of maintaining warmer ties with Beijing is the safer path to preserving peace. The clash has sparked massive protests and now reaches a boiling point as China watches closely. Let's break this down. Taiwan's parliament has 113 seats. If 6 more switched hands, adding to the 24 addressed in this initial wave, Lai would regain control. But this exists in a precarious balance. China vehemently opposes the DPP's pro-sovereignty stance, dismissing Lai as a separatist and threatening harsh responses should Taiwan drift further toward formal independence. Retaining KMT control might actually calm Beijing's tone, but the political deadlock continues. The campaign's aftermath reveals deep societal fissures. Activists like Julia Lin express frustration that the KMT's reckless actions have gone unchecked, while Lai himself urged calm, saying the result proves Taiwan's mature democratic process can handle conflict. The KMT framed the failed recall as proof of public distrust in the DPP's tactics, dismissing the pro-China label as a divisive smear. But here's the part most people miss. These 24 seats were just the first wave. 7 more districts will vote in coming weeks, putting pressure on campaigners to secure 6 victories to flip the parliament. Early signals suggest a tough road ahead, as Saturday's outcome emboldened the KMT and exposed cracks within anti-DPP forces. International observers note the fallout could reshape cross-strait dynamics. Crisis analyst William Yang warns the recall campaign amplified Taiwan's internal divisions, making it harder to unite under common security goals. He speculates China might interpret the results as a sign that China threat rhetoric resonates less with Taiwanese voters, though Beijing isn't likely to ease military pressure. The emotional divide played out visibly. Tens of thousands rallied in Taipei ahead of the vote, with DPP supporters fearing a KMT victory would make them invincible and plunge Taiwan into more political gridlock. Meanwhile, KMT officials underscored their commitment to stability and rejecting the recall's polarizing pro-China versus pro-Taiwan framing. A lingering question hangs. Was this recall process a justified defense of national sovereignty or an overheated power grab, exploiting security fears? The DPP and its allies argued that removing pro-Beijing legislators is essential to counter threats, while the KMT accused them of exploiting democratic tools to overturn legitimate election results. This situation took another layer of complexity when Beijing intervened, condemning the recall as a DPP plot for one-party dominance and accusing Lai of dictatorial tendencies. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council fired back, accusing China of clear interference in local democracy. As the island navigates this post-election landscape, the failed recall leaves more questions than answers. Can Lai's administration find common ground with a legislative majority? Will cross-strait relations pivot toward engagement or escalation? The battle isn't over, and neither is the conversation about Taiwan's volatile future. Should campaigns weaponize security concerns, or does democracy demand broader consensus? What's your take? Should political parties prioritize unity during external threats, or fiercely contest policies they believe endanger sovereignty? Join the discussion below.